Makeup. It's something in film that could take a pasty white person such as myself and make them dark. And it can also take someone who is extremely beautiful and make them a monster. I have no clue how to use any of this. But makeup is one of those key components of filmmaking. It's a category for an Oscar, Best Makeup and Hair. It helps set the character. So that is what today's conversation is going to be about the art of makeup. Our next guest is Andie Sleeman, a lead makeup artist of several films. And so she's going to walk us through the art of makeup. Gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Film Nation. This time, makeup. No, I'm not doing that. I would try. I just don't know. All right, guys, welcome back to our class again. Our guest today is Andie Sleeman. She was the head makeup artist for last year's Neon Rabbits and this year's forthcoming film, Treason. Andie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we really do appreciate it and learning a little bit more about the art that you do. Makeup and hair is one of those Oscar categories that probably when people are going through their picks, they look at it, they don't know much about it. So they're like, they see maybe a summer blockbuster and they're like, oh, that one had an alien in it, so surely that's going to win. But it's an art form that a lot of the audience folks don't know a lot about. What is it that you would like audience members to know about the art that you're doing to contribute in film and television?
I think a lot of people don't think about is we're actually part of character development. We're actually part of the process of developing the character, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. I think a lot of people overlook that. They just think, oh, it's just hair and makeup, when it is actually a substantial part of that part of the movie.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to that thought in just a moment.
Sure.
Because you're very right. It is a huge component of telling a character. There are sort of though two major styles of makeup. The first makeup artist, I would say, is the artist that would take an actress like Charlize Theron and beautify her for like a movie like The Huntsman, or at the same time taking Charlize Theron and giving her this plain Jane, struggling new mom look, as in Tully. And then there's also the special effects makeup artist that is creating a monster for Guillermo del Toro, making Christian Bale look like Dick Cheney in the movie Vice. And you're using latex prosthetics and things like that. Could you just sort of summarize the difference of and how these two, although they're the same category, like how different they are and what's the art that goes behind them?
Yeah, they're completely different. So when you go into the special effects world, you're kind of living in a lab. That's where you spend the majority of your time developing the character, going through running the different prosthetic applications that you're going to be making. So your life is majorly in a lab. There's definitely a person on set who applies it, but most of the work is not traditional like on-set work, what I think of. Whereas when you're doing the other type of makeups, it's right here, right now, out of your kit. Yeah,
it's creating the other type is like making, would you say, like someone relatable as a person,
sure.
like as they.
Yeah, it depends on what your idea of relatable is. I mean, so maybe some people do relate to the monsters. Like, that's kind of cool. But yeah, no, it's more approachable, maybe. Yeah, like it seems more, it's what you would see in everyday life. Whereas the monster stuff is definitely more fantasy.
Okay. Now, just a moment ago, you were saying it is about character development. And makeup and hair is a huge element in this. Matter of fact, really, in all honesty, you're the first glimpse, first impression of a character. I mean, unless the character is introduced to us by a voiceover or a narration,
Right.
the work that you do impacts the audience by what we see.
Sure.
And if by chance you've done a poor job, immediately the audience is already disconnected to that character.
Yeah, if you can see the makeup, it was not done right.
If you've done a great job, more than likely you're not even recognized because the audience just takes you for granted.
Yep.
So what is the stress level like knowing that you have a huge responsibility in developing this character, and knowing if you make it disbelievable, you could cause the movie, in essence, that character to fail.
Completely.
But if you nail it right, nobody's going to actually recognize what you did.
Yeah, and that's what you strive for. You don't want anybody to know you. You don't want to be on anybody's lips. Completely. You just want it to be as believable as possible, for sure. You want the application to be believable, but you also want the character you want what you're applying and what you're creating to go with that character. Like if you have somebody from a period piece and you're doing makeup that's not the right period, or even just slightly off, it completely changes the whole thing. Same with hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now that you're actually speaking about like period pieces, the Academy Awards, like if we look at the last 5 years, there's been 17 nominated films, because for the longest time it was just 3 films. Now it is, this last year we recognized 5 films. But out of those 17, only 4 of them were really like that sci-fi creature effect kind of makeup. The majority of them were that either time-pieced, real sort of sense of realism kind of thing. And the last 3 winners were Vice, Bombshell, and The Darkest Hour. Is Hollywood seeing a shift of like realizing how important that art, because like when the Academy's first recognized makeup, it was more recognizing the monsters and things of that, but the work that you do of making a realistic connection to the audience, you think Hollywood's more recognizing that art and that talent now?
I definitely think it's shining through more now. I don't know if I don't know like what's the cause and what's the reaction, but it excuse me, it definitely is more prevalent, I would say, for sure. I also think a lot of the creature stuff is being turned over to the to the visual effects department as well, which is something to keep in mind.
Because we're starting to see more CGI creatures and things of that sort.
Yeah. And even the stuff that you see that is makeup, almost all of the time it has been adjusted somewhat. Sorry, my dog. Has been adjusted somewhat with CGI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we look at an example, one of my favorite films of all times is Silence of the Lambs. And such a good, thank you. And one of the tricks that makeup artists did in it is in the autopsy scene, where Clarice they turn over a victim, and she has these 2 diamond-shaped cuts in her back, and you see the actress's fat. Now, what that was actually just pasta and KY jelly and food coloring to create that. So again, it was makeup and special effects makeup in this case. But a lot of times when we look at movies, we see blood, like if there was a victim of like some kind of violence or something of that sort. Horror movies have all sorts of creatures and things of that sort. And, you know, even in the horror films, we got to say, movie's not real. This is not real. It's all make-believe. It's all make-believe and stuff of that sort.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite things that you've learned since you've been doing makeup with film? Like, oh, this is a cool little trick or whatever, whether it's blood or just way to create a sense of light and skin tones. What's one of your things that you've learned that you really like?
Oh, there's so many things. I think what's really cool right now with the special effects stuff is you can actually buy it off the shelf. If you're on low budget and you can't actually do like a full cast of your crew, of your characters or whatever, you can actually go and buy these products that have already been made, and they literally go on just like tattoos.
Okay.
They literally, you take them. I mean, there's a few steps that go involved. Obviously, you have to put makeup on top of them to make them blend in with the skin. You have to add your blood, your pus, and all that kind of fun stuff. But these applications are incredible. You literally put it on, and within 10 seconds, if you do it right, you pull it off, and you have, excuse me, you have actually the gash in the skin. It's crazy.
Okay.
So I think that those are really awesome tools that we have now, and it makes it so much, it's so much cheaper as well, which is great because, you know, everybody wants the bottom line to be lower. And then also as far as just general makeup stuff, I think that learning skin tone has been a lot of fun and super important. I think that it's overlooked sometimes. It's a big part of what you do, for sure.
Now, what do you mean that the skin tone gets overlooked? I mean, like, because someone pasty white like me on a camera is probably going to be like, wow, that's blinding. And you're saying we got to tone you down or something? Or
well, it's learning how the light reacts. So you have, when the light hits the person, depending on what the scene is, if you have a super bright light, everything's going to kind of be washed out. So you have to learn how to bring their features back depending on what features are important to that character. So learning how to do that with highlights and shadows and really becoming friendly with the lighting department is super important. Don't ever make them mad. They can destroy your life. Yeah, and then also just all different ethnicities, because being in this industry, you're going to be exposed to everybody. And I think that a lot of artists, especially artists starting out, tend to focus on their own ethnicity because that's generally who they have their hands on the most. So I think that taking the time and really getting your hands on everybody and every type of skin tone and texture is super important and will pay. It just changes everything.
And do you think you were able to benefit because you actually started off in the fashion, in essence, the fashion world, New York City, so you had a diverse series of models, so that was a huge help for you?
Absolutely. I even went through and started when I was first starting out many years ago. I went and did freelance for a makeup company. So what that allowed me to do is when we had events at different stores, I would actually get in there and, I mean, you have no idea who's coming through and sitting in your seat. You know, was not what I ultimately wanted to do, but I knew that it was so important to just touch as many people as possible. Okay.
So learning, let's say one of my guys here is possibly interested in going into makeup and this field. What is it? What skills would they need to have, and what can they expect? I mean, about this journey, because it's been a long journey for yourself.
Yeah, I've been at it over 10 years now. Whatever you're expecting and whatever's in your head before you start, it's not whatever that is. I thought that I really wanted to get into fashion, and I did it, and I loved it, and I had a great time, but then I had a pivot. I was pulled into a film production, which pivoted me into actually going into film, and I just kind of went with it. I didn't fight it. It was not something that I even thought about, but it just completely changed things. But as far as when you're first starting out, I definitely say have a strong stomach if you're planning on going into special effects. When you're doing special effects, you absolutely have to look at the real injury. You can't look at someone's interpretation of the injury because it will always look wrong. It always looks off. It just doesn't look right. What else is really important? I think that being creative and having other creative outlets is super important, whether it's through art, photography, music, just something else to kind of get your brain going, because you never know where you're going to pull other inspiration from. And the more you are flexing that muscle, the easier it will be when you're on the fly to come up with something. What else is important? I think that surrounding yourself with people that are like how you want to be is also super important, whether it's other makeup artists or just anybody in that specific type of the industry. You know, be the bottom of the totem pole and be comfortable there. Because if everybody's better than you, that's where you're striving.
Right.
It's really important.
So, and there's no harm being at the bottom, because then you're going to get somebody that's a mentor that in his essence, absolutely, teaching you and guiding you and getting you to the place that you do want to get to.
Yeah, to wherever the top is, and then that top becomes your new bottom. Like, you just got to keep doing it.
So, all right, Andie. So we're going to go with 5 quick questions now.
Okay.
So this is just going to be a quick way to wrap this up. So, you ready?
let's do it.
All right. Most important item in your makeup?
Most important item, sanitizer.
Most hours you've spent in a chair making someone made up?
The most what? I'm sorry.
Most hours you've spent in a chair with somebody?
2 hours is the longest I've spent so far.
Okay. Go-to snack?
Go-to snack, soda water.
Favorite makeup job that you've seen somebody else do?
Oh man, there's so many. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. There's literally so many. I mean, anything that Neill does, I'm in love with. So
Yes.
let's start with her.
Very cool.
Queen Bee.
And the show or movie that you would kill to be a part of and work with?
Yeah. What is something I would love? Anything that's period piece. I just got through Peaky Blinders. That was super fun. I loved it. The hair was so crazy. The makeup was incredible. So that's the most recent one on my mind. So that would have been awesome. I would have loved to have been a part of that.
All right. Andie Sleeman, thank you so much for being a part of this class. It has been enjoyable to get to know you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Andie, so much for being a part of this class, and thank you for sharing your insight into an amazing art form that goes into film. Again, it's one of those arts that if it's bad, we notice it. If it's good and you did amazing work, we can't even recognize it. So, to all those great makeup artists out there, thank you for your contribution to films. And guys, thanks for being again a part of this class by listening. As always, remain awesome, be nice, stay safe, and I will see you soon. No, I still don't know how to use this. Sorry. See you later, guys. Today's episode of Film Nation was brought to you by Awesome Sauce. Because sometimes in life, there are some pretty awesome people that make things just better for you in this world. So, for all those that are Awesome Sauce out there,